to go along with those family dynamics, and that was one thing that there was a little bit more of a contrast between us, and not so much of a sameness or exact similarity. Then something else that was a little more of a contrast, but in a way it was still mirrored. Not that it was an exact reflection, but you know how in the mirror things are kind of reversed. Um, there was a contrast in our parents and their marriage and the way that it was kind of expressed and lived out in front of us. And funny enough, in my upbringing, even though, like I said, they were, very strongly committed to their faith and strong believers and did everything in their power to protect us and raise us up correctly spiritually, because of a lot of the things that had happened throughout their own lives and their own family. Just some other dynamics that, just things that they were dealing with in their own lives as far as my parents. The marriage that I was familiar with, the marriage as I understood it, that I was exposed to, was not affectionate at all. There wasn't a whole lot of like love and affection demonstrated between them as a couple, and by consequence, there wasn't a lot of affection shown in our house. Period. Like they weren't, real lovey-dovey, touchy-feely, hug you all the time, and they did say that they loved us. Don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't something that happened often. They weren't, hugging on us all the time, and like I said, just super affectionate. They weren't like that with each other at all, and I think by osmosis that trickled down to kind of the dynamic and interaction we had with them. They weren't very affectionate with us in that manner. Now they did the best they could, and I have nothing bad to say about my parents. I'm eternally grateful for what they did for us and the effort that they put in. But nobody's perfect. So, and again, a lot of this had to do with, I believe, the way that they were raised and what they saw in front of them and what they experienced. Because we all know that how you are raised, how you come up without intervention by Yah Himself, that's how you're going to turn around and raise your children. So there just wasn't a lot of physical affection and expressions of love on a consistent basis, even though we were the ones who grew up in church, the more religious family. There wasn't a whole lot of that in my child in my upbringing, and by extension, that made me and my siblings kind of hardened young people as we got older. We didn't have a lot of like patience or empathy for people. We weren't very affectionate. I just didn't like to be touched and all that kind of stuff. I didn't like to be hugged. Too much lovey-dovey talk. It made me uncomfortable. Which is again is just funny considering we were the ones that were raised in church. But so that was my experience growing up as far as love and affection.
And in my home, it was definitely the stark contrast of that. My parents were extremely affectionate with each other, for sure. They always demonstrated their love for each other, vocally, physically, and so we had that. And then they were also, they kind of both came out of rough situations at home, and so they made a point when they started having their own children to they decided together, like, we're gonna make sure that our kids know, how much we love them, because we didn't necessarily always get that. Especially my dad, he came out of a very rough situation in his home, and just really terrible. So they both kind of made that decision together, and I will always be grateful to them for turning that around, because that is like he said, in most situations, how somebody is brought up, that's their example, and so they turn around and do the same thing. But it just so happened that my parents both came together and decided that stuff ended with them, and they were going to change that dynamic with us. And so we had a very, very, very openly affectionate home. Lots of love and hug, and never leave without saying I love you, like that type of thing. And you'll see later on, you'll see how that affected Evan as he moved in with me and stuff. But it was definitely very, very interesting for him coming into that environment.
Very.
Yeah. So, kind of moving forward a little bit.
With our generation, I guess.
Yeah, we,
90s kids.
Yeah, the 90s, the classic, the best.
The best generation. Don't let nobody tell you different.
That's right. But yeah, we going into like the middle school era. It was wild. It was wild. There was a lot of, the culture was very
Shifting.
It shifted into a more promiscuous kind of culture, and that was pushed on us in the media, in the in the music videos, everything we were watching,
shows.
and yes, in the shows, a lot with the shows. Everything we were taking in was kind of guiding us in that direction, and so we both witnessed a lot of promiscuity, and starting early, like in middle school, and there was a lot of peer pressure. It was like super cliche. Like people were acting out what they saw in the movies and the shows, almost.
The music.
Yeah, and so this is something Evan and I have talked about a lot, though, in that we kind of removed ourselves from that, even though it was going on very very prominently in front of us. We were both very social and pretty popular, but we kind of we didn't allow ourselves to stoop to some of the levels that we were seeing. Yeah, it was and so because of that, we both kind of ended up being the counselors of our friend groups.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, yeah, no, exactly everything that she was just saying. Because of the kind of cultural shift that was going on, the greater push towards some of the madness that you see going on now, a lot of that foundation was laid. And I understand, earlier than our generation, but a lot of the prominence and normalcy of it was kind of, was pushed during that 90s generation. Specifically, like she was saying, in the entertainment and the music, the seeds that were planted in like the revolutions of the 60s and 70s, and the kind of drug-fueled rage of the 80s. And you saw those seeds that were planted, you started to see them grow in that 90s generation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that pressure that was being put on the youth of our generation, like you said, we saw a lot of our social groups succumb to that pressure, and embrace it fully, and go completely crazy trying to live that lifestyle of grown folk while they were way, way, way too young. But thanks to the Most High that we both, because we had decently solid foundations in our home life, we were able to kind of take a step back from that and see it for what it was, and be like, okay, I'm not about to get involved in all these crazy shenanigans y'all got going on. And because we were guarded and kept to a much larger degree than our peers, we both kind of ended up being the Dr. Phils of our friend group. And because we were, pretty popular, pretty well known and well liked, We both had kind of a wide spectrum of people we were friends with. The jocks, the nerds, wide spectrum. So because of that, we got a lot of conversations of asking for advice, and a lot of people bearing their souls to us and telling us all the gritty details of what was going on in their personal lives. Things we did not even want to know. Like,
At all.
look, I don't know what you got going on, but look, I'm good on all of that. But people liked and respected us, and that was, I think, a great marker of, again, Yah's early hand on our lives. People could see that, even our peers at that young age, and so they would come to us a lot for advice, or just as a ear to listen or a shoulder to lean on. And so we did a lot of young counseling. Of course, now kids counseling, children counseling children is just a hilarious concept, but we were doing it, and we both were blessed with some maturity beyond our years. So we did our best to try to tell them to do the right thing, give them the right path, as best as we knew how. Now, they never listened, but, we tried. We did our best to tell them, what we understood to be the right way to go about these things. And it was just such a product of the times. And it was funny because she was telling you about that early experience of her driving in the Barbie car. Another kind of a contrast because of the strong religious affinity that I grew up with. The official rule in the house was no secular music. For those that don't know, secular means anything that's not gospel or Christian music. Now, again, this has nothing to do with PKs being bad kids, because, again, that's a misconception. Don't believe that. Growing up, we took a strong, sneaky stance against that, and we did everything in our power to go around that rule and listen to everything. Now, that was one area of cultural peer pressure, I guess you could say, that we were horrible in resisting. And we were just a very strongly musical family, like how her family was actually very popular. We actually have some very popular musical people in our family as well. Some Grammy winners and things like that. I won't go into detail, but we have a very strong musical family as well. We have very strong musical roots. It's in our blood. And we just had such a natural, like I said, affinity to music that we did horrible of resisting that pull and that call of secular music. So we did a lot of sneaking, going behind our parents' back, listening, whenever they weren't around. Anytime we got a chance, we was listening to any and everything. And so we were fully immersed and fully aware of everything that was going on in the world of music at that time. We were listening to everything everybody else was listening to. And but thankfully, like she said, we were able to kind of resist some of the pressures of acting out some of those themes and those activities that were being promoted in the music. But we were very well aware and very much involved on our own, and having our own favorites and everything, listening to everybody. And we both had very wide range of musical tastes. So it wasn't just all hip hop. We liked a little bit of everything. And come to find out, our parents, when they were coming up, when they were young and wild and in the world, they were the same way. They had a wide range of taste. They listened to a little bit of everything. My pops, before he was a man of the cloth, a man of God, he was a huge Michael Jackson fan, which I find to be absolutely hilarious. And that kind of wide range of taste was passed on to us for sure. So we, like I said, we listened to everything. But because we understood what was going on in society, we were very familiar with the music. We were listening to it ourselves. We were able to stay out of participation to a large part, especially to the extent of our peers. So, like she was saying, we became to be known as the counselors. We were Dr. Phil before Dr. Phil, with all our kind of our peer groups. And so that was in middle school and kind of moving forward into high school. And that leads us to get into the best part, the juicy part of the story, where after graduating high school, where the Most High started to merge our paths and we were gonna meet each other. And so I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I was born and raised. She was actually born and raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And so these two random, wildly separated cities and states. You know, two people. We crossed paths in the most unlikely of places, a place neither one of us wanted to be. Some of you may be familiar with this place called Branson, Missouri. It is the weirdest popular destination vacation spot in America. Very much an attraction for like senior citizens and older people. It's real kind of country still down there. It's very small town feel. So I'll just tell why I was down there, and then I'll let her tell her part of the story. But so after high school, I didn't go to college right away. I wasn't really sure 100% what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to make some money, so I worked a lot for the first year after I graduated, and when it was time for me to finally pick a school and to go there, originally I was going to go to this Christian college in Pensacola, Florida. That's where all my focus was. That's where the effort was. I was very, very much in the final stages of going to college in Florida. Almost missed this beautiful angel here. Almost missed my destiny. But you know, praise to the Most High. He rerouted that, and I'm so grateful that he did. Cause man, Lord knows where in the world I would be right now if I went to college in Florida. Like, oh my gosh. But my mom found out about this little Christian school in Branson, Missouri, or as officially it's called Point Lookout, Missouri, down there in the Branson-Hollister area, called College of the Ozarks. And it's this revolutionary idea. The concept of it, I think, is amazing. This idea where you could work on campus as you were going to school there, and the work you did would go towards helping to pay your tuition. Beautiful idea. She found this place. She immediately loved it. She loved the concept. She loved the idea. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of money at the time, so that was highly attractive as well. She was telling me about it. I was completely against it. We went to go visit it, and I was 150% convinced that this was not the place for me, especially after we visited. It's just like, what in the world? There is cornfields and literal like cows and stuff on campus, and they had a farm on campus, and like I said, Branson was a very small, like senior citizen kind of vacation destination spot. Tiny, tiny little town. I was like, absolutely not. But y'all had other plans, and it worked out. Well, that was the place for me. That was meant to go. And against all my better judgment, kicking and screaming, I proceeded to go to attend College of the Ozarks in Branson, Missouri in January of, it would have been 2008. Yeah, January 2008. I made my St. Louis city self down to old country Branson, Missouri. So that's how I got down there.
Okay, so when I was in my junior year of high school, my mom, she started making moves toward, because you know my parents are musicians. My sister and I both played as well. We were both singers. And at this point, my brother was just a baby. He was the oops kid. He was born when I was 15 years old, so my mom had 2 built-in babysitters already. But my mom started putting together a business plan to create a show in Branson, Missouri, because as he said, it's like an old people tourist destination, and so they have like shows, like almost like a mini Bible Belt Vegas for old people, kind of.
Yes, that's a perfect description.
And so my mom, you know, she puts together this business plan like a complete boss, and like somehow gathers all these investors, and all of a sudden she's like, we're selling the house, you know, and I did not want to go at all. I was a 17-year-old girl, and so you can imagine the attitude. I was not trying to leave. I was popular at my high school. This is where I grew up. This is where my friends are. And I was like, you're not about to snatch me up right before my senior year of high school. But in the end, here we are. We ended up in Branson, and it was crazy. We had a beautiful home, and the show, I mean, that's probably a whole nother video, to be honest, because there was so much that happened with the show. But overall, it was a good experience. I learned, what it truly takes to be a performer. And my sister and I became even closer because once we moved there, we didn't know anybody. Basically, all we had was each other. And so, I finished my senior year in teeny tiny Hollister, Missouri. I was not happy about it, but I'm grateful for it because I met my baby. So, it was just funny because we both really didn't want to be there, and it was not a place that was fun for either of us, at all. But we eventually came across each other, and through mutual friends, because my homegirl was actually dating his homeboy. And so it just so worked out, divine intervention that we met one day.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because he was like my best friend there at the college, and he was dating a girl from the town. And that girl from the town that he was dating, who was like our best friend to this day, mm-hmm. You are, shout out to you. And she actually was kind of very instrumental in getting us together, funny enough. Mm-hmm. But so my best friend's girlfriend was a girl from the town, and her best friend was Teresa. And so it was funny because me and my boy, we spent an incredible amount of time at his girlfriend's house, her apartment in the town, and she spent an incredible amount of time with them at their house as well. And for the longest time, we just never crossed paths. No. It was crazy. No. Like, there was a bunch of pictures of them of hanging out, and I heard a bunch of stories about her and saw pictures of her all the time. And I thought that she just didn't exist. I thought it was a myth. I thought they had made this woman up, because it's like, me and my boy are here all the time. How can you be with this chick all the time as well? But I have never seen her. Like, these are Photoshop. I don't know what y'all talking about. She don't exist. But no, seriously, it was so crazy how, it says our steps are ordered by the Most High, and it's just amazing how He ordered that and orchestrated that meeting. I was not in the best place mentally and emotionally, so to speak, when we finally did cross paths. We were both, I'll just speak for I'll just say we were both kind of coming out of serious relationships at the time. I was freshly coming out of a relationship that was pretty serious in a pretty short amount of time. It was a young lady I had met at the school. I had been there for I was there at the school for about a year total. But at this time, I had only been there for one semester. We met in the summer of 2008. And so from January, I got to the school in January. So from January till like the beginning of the summer, or the middle of the summer, I had started dating a young lady, and it got like way too serious, way too fast. And she ended up traveling back home with me one time and meeting the family and all this. It's just, it was just wild. But come to find out, there had been some shenanigans going on, and I had gotten cheated on, and I was in a very angry, bitter kind of place. And I was at this point where I was like, which I should have done to begin with, but I had sworn off relationships. I'm like, I don't care about these little girls. I'm on my bachelor tip. I'm focused on just career and getting money. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get this money and focus on me, and I'm going to do the Bruce Wayne thing. I'm going to be Batman. I'm going to be a rich bachelor and learn every martial art style in the world and be rich and have all these cool gadgets. and I'm gonna just do what I want, and I'm gonna be single for the rest of my life. It's me and this money. That's all I care about. And that was my mind state when I actually finally met her for the first time. I had, just probably the week or two before, rather that week, I had just sworn off relationships forever, and it was all about getting this bread. And then I'll let her tell her part.
And oddly enough, I too was in a really stupid, serious relationship. It was a mess. But I literally, when I met him, I was like, I think that I had broken up with him the night prior or something like that.
Literally, I think.
It was like really, really close to when I had finally ended it, because I too had been cheated on. And it was wild. I had a miscarriage, and so my headspace was no good either. I was a complete mess, and I, of course, the scorned woman. I too had sworn off men completely. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I have plenty of things going for me. I was working at the time. I was making decent money. I was like, I'm just gonna focus on me, and I was like, that's it. And then one day when I got off work, I actually worked. This is why it's so crazy that we hadn't met yet, because I actually worked on campus at the condos where my best friend lived.
And I basically lived there too, because my boy lived there, and we were always together, so he always had me with him.
Yeah.
So we were always at his girlfriend's condo, and she worked there on the property.
Yep, I was working there at the time, and so I got off work and I came right over there, still had my work clothes on and everything, and I walked in and I was like, ooh. But I didn't say anything because I was trying to play it cool, just trying to feel it out, and kept trying to remind myself that I had sworn off men, even though the finest thing walking was sitting right in front of me. And so he was actually there getting his hair done, and I was just there, acting a fool and girl talking it up with my friends.
And I was sitting there going through the same thing, like, oh, okay, so she does exist. Here's this young lady I've been hearing about for literally months, seeing pictures and all this, hearing all these great stories, and I was, like I said, I didn't think she was real. But then in she walks one day, and it's like, oh, okay. And again, I'm, being me, I'm playing it cool. I'm sitting there at the table waiting, to get my hair done. I ain't really saying too much. Spoke my greeting when she walked in or whatever, and the same thing. I'm sitting there like, all right, now, you just said that you're done. Okay, it's over with. You're done with relationships and chasing these women folk around. It's all about you're focusing on your career, your education. You're gonna get this money. Don't fall for this, man. Don't. This is a test. This is a test, okay? Life is testing you right now. You gotta pass this test. I don't care how beautiful she looks. I don't care how much you like her smile or her personality. Don't do it, bro. Like, I'm how fellas, how we be coaching ourselves in the head. Like, all right, don't do this. While we running this play and this interference, you cut back this way and not worry about it. But I'm still sitting there, kind of watching her out the corner of my eye, but making sure that she don't catch me looking at her, because that ain't cool. And besides, I just sworn our women, so I shouldn't have a problem looking anyway. You know what I'm saying? I'm focused on this money. But I was, struggling and losing the battle. But I felt like I was being pretty successful in that, I was able to watch her without being caught. But, come to find out, I may not have been as successful as I thought. I think I did pretty good.
I seen ya.
So, this next part has been a highly contested fact of our relationship, okay? So she swears up and down that she made the first move. Okay. I say that's hogwash and balderdash and skullduggery. She did not. I made the first move because I had been hearing all of these stories for all this time, seeing these pictures, and I had been asking our mutual friend, like, what's up? Where's she at then? Like, bring her around. So, technically, I made the first move because I have been trying to see her for myself for a long time. But she says that don't count for some reason. And so that night when she came over, we finally met face to face. We were all planning on going out to the club the next night. And so while we were sitting there, like I said, we were introduced, we met, but we didn't really talk like that. I just kind of, I'm cool. I just played the background, sat down. I'm just sitting at the table, kind of watching from a distance, watching all the interactions. And my fisherman approach was highly successful because you understand. See, now let me not get sidetracked. No, I don't need to give y'all no tips. You wait for the woman the Most High has for you, and then when you meet her, you approach her like a man. You ask to court her and so on and so forth. So, brothers, don't take this as advice moving forward. You don't need dating advice. You do it how the Most High says in His Word. But at the time, like I said, we weren't always in this place. So at the time, my super smooth fisherman's approach was highly successful. You know what I'm saying? I played cool. I stayed in the background. I controlled my initial desires to chase her because I had just sworn off women. It was about this money. And so I didn't do or say too much. I just kind of played the back and watched. So we was all talking about going out clubbing the next night. So before she left, we were all talking about it and making our plans and so on and so forth. When we gonna leave? We're gonna pick up who, so on and so forth. And so she was like, she came up to me and she was, like, you going out with us tomorrow? And I was like, maybe. I'm thinking about it. And so she was like, okay. So she asked me if I would be her dancing partner when we went. Now, for all of you super devout, chaste people who may be watching this, who have been following the Most High your whole lives and never done anything wrong, praise y'all for you. That is the goal. That's the aim. That's how it's supposed to be. You guys may not be aware, when you go out to the club, when you go to dance or whatever, especially for a highly attractive young woman, it serves you greatly to have a male there that is like your dancing partner, because it removes an insane amount of stress for you. You don't have to worry about all the sweaty drunk dudes coming up to you, trying to holler at you, trying to get your number, wanting to dance with you, so on and so forth. If you have somebody there already that's with you and y'all just are kind of like unofficially each other's escort for the night, like, look, we just gonna kind of kick it. It keeps the young lady protected, and for such an eligible bachelor as myself, it keeps me protected as well. It keeps me from being hounded by young ladies at the club. You know what I'm saying? So she came up and asked, she was like, well, hey, you just want to be my dancing partner tomorrow? And, again, I'm playing it cool. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. That'll work. Yeah, that's cool. And in the inside, I'm panicking. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, why did you just say yes? Like, you just swore our women folk. It's about this money. Like, what are you doing? But, at this point, I'm not even controlling myself no more. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I'm like, oh, why did you say yes? Mm-hmm. And so all that night, all the next day, like, and again, I was a smooth dude. I'm Bruce Wayne. I didn't sweat women. Like, women sweat me. I don't sweat women. Bro, I'm panicking the whole night and the whole next day. Like, I'm thinking about it all hard. I'm like, bro, what you gonna wear? You gotta put your outfit together. I'm in full blown, like, DEFCON 6 emergency mode, okay? And so I'm like, bro, I'm sweating out. I have to change my outfits 3 or 4 times throughout the day, thinking about this. Like, yo, you finally done met this girl. She's everything and more that you've been hearing now that you met her in person. Oh my gosh, she's freshly single too. You freshly single. Like, this is all going terribly wrong. You just swore women. Like, what is happening? And look, and now you panicking, you sweating. Like, see, you like her already. You don't even know her. Like, what's wrong with you? So I'm going through it, and but I'm not gonna back out. I'm not no punk. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna look like a coward. So because even though I'm trying to convince myself otherwise, I desperately did want to get to know her. Because again, even though we didn't really talk that much that first initial meeting, the connection was kind of automatic and apparent without us even having a lot of conversation. It was crazy.
You liked my jokes.
I did. I thought she was funny. I thought she was kind of funny. She cracked a couple jokes here and there that when you in that cool stage, you don't really laugh. You just kind of smirk and you go back to texting on your phone. You don't scrolling social media. You don't say too much. But she actually busted a couple of jokes that actually made me laugh out loud, like involuntarily. Like I couldn't even hold, the coolness couldn't hold it back. So I was like, man, this girl crazy. I really did think she was way funnier than I was. Like, they always told me she was real funny, but you always hear about people and then you meet them and you're like, bro, this is what everybody's so excited about. Like, man, this person's trash. But she was way funnier than I had even heard that I was expecting. So yeah, she did make me laugh a couple of times. Like I said, against my own desire, I couldn't even hold it back. So yeah, we the connection was kind of apparent. Like I said, she came up and asked me to be her dancing partner, and like I heard myself saying yes. I didn't even decide to do that. I was like, what has happened?
I don't even know what happened there. It was almost like I wasn't in control of my own body, because I had just sworn off men, and normally, like in the past, if I said that, then I was very serious about it. Like I was not a wishy-washy kind of person. Like if I said I'm done, then I am done for real. So the fact that I all of a sudden the very next night was like, hey, you want to be my dancing partner? And
Wayne,
I was like,
trying to tell y'all.
Yeah, he was too sexy. So the next night, get all dressed up, put on my best, and put my smell goods on, and make sure I'm looking right, and we all went out to the club, and being on that dance floor was crazy. It was like, how in the music videos when two people are dancing and then everybody else on the dance floor kind of like disappears, and it's like the spotlight is just on them two. Like that's really how it felt. It was like,
music gets all
I don't want to be all lame and corny, but it was like magical, because and again, like it wasn't even like we were talking that much because the music was bumping, but we like our rhythms keyed up, like they were like in sync with each other, like our dancing styles were like in harmony. It was crazy, and it was like the whole night I was seducing him.
See, she admitted out of mouth. That's gonna be important later. Don't remember it. Now again, understand. Like I said, we putting it all out there to show you that we are real people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A big part of this testimony is to show you progress and to show you where Yah can take you from and take you to. So again, don't misunderstand us here, but we're just being honest. We're just telling you the real of how we got started.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like this was super uncharacteristic for me. Like I was not somebody who chased dudes at all. I was like completely against that. Like I would have probably died before I, did something like that. But it was like, again, I was like not in control of my own body for some reason, and I just couldn't help it because there was just, it wasn't like something about him, it was everything about him. and I was like not in control. So I like threw myself at him completely, and that was like so not characteristic for me, because like we were saying before, like we made it a point to not be to not be promiscuous, like our peers were. So and it was crazy because I had this mental battle going on. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, he is gonna think you're a hoe. It was crazy, but it was like I literally couldn't help myself. I just knew it was like I knew in my heart that I needed him. So that was for some reason my way of drawing him in.
Yeah, and to that point, I was not the type of person that believed in chasing either, and I really wasn't impressed, or I wasn't moved by over aggressive women. I actually didn't like that. It was just a little too much for me. Like if females are doing a little too much, coming at you a little too hard, it was a little untrustworthy. It made me like, you're doing too much. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys that really, they really thoroughly enjoy and prefer if women, throw themselves at them and pursue them super hard. But that was not me. That wasn't my personality at all. And I knew what was happening. I knew that she was actively pursuing you, boy, but for the first time in my life, I didn't mind. I didn't mind at all. And not only did I not mind, I found myself responding and reciprocating. And again, it was like I would see myself doing things and hear myself saying things, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? What are you doing? But like she said, in retrospect, understanding now that, again, even though we were in a place where we, shouldn't have been, understanding now that what was happening was I was sensing the spiritual connection. And that, they talk about love at first sight and all those kind of cheesy, kind of corny kind of attributes of romance and rom-coms and all that, but I can truly say, listen, if you come across the person that the Most High has designated for you, you hear stories of people saying love at first sight. I always hated that. I thought it was so cheesy. Like, that's the lamest thing ever, But after meeting her, I can truly say from experience, like, that's a real thing. Like, it can happen. And in all honesty, if you talk to people that have truly experienced love at first sight, what they all will tell you is that it's terrifying, because you understand you're experiencing something beyond yourself, beyond the norm. It's something beyond just physical attraction. It's not just lust or being attracted to somebody's personality or oh she's fine. So it is so far beyond that. Again, in retrospect, understanding now what it is it's spiritual. Yes. Understanding that there is a spiritual connection the Most High has set up from before time began, that He has ordained that you're to be with this person. And when you come into contact with that, it is actually kind of terrifying. It's scary. Yes. And like I said, looking back now, I understood that's what I was experiencing. I was sensing that, okay, no, this is your person. Like, this is the woman for you. And like I said, I had literally known her for like 7 hours total in life, period. Yeah. And as we got along further in our relationship, we started talking and kind of reminiscing on stuff and laughing and joking. And what was so scary was I was realizing, even that night while we were just hanging out and talking and dancing, getting to know each other, I can say honestly, that night, and one of the things that was so scary was that night, I knew that I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. And it made no sense. It's like, bro, you don't even know this woman. Like, she could be a serial killer. Like, she could be anything. Like, what if this is all an act? But I knew, and I was that was what was scaring me so deeply, was like having that sense deep within my core and really being super unfamiliar with it and not knowing what to do about it, because it made no natural sense. It made no natural sense. But that's really what I was sensing, was that, like, this is your wife. And again, I had just sworn off relationships, so that's the last thing I should be feeling with a complete stranger. And yet it was so overpowering and so overwhelming. Like I said, I can admit that now looking back. At the time, if you would have asked me, I would have denied it to the fullest. But looking back, I was understanding now that that's what I truly was sensing and feeling. And I was even having some of those kind of thoughts, like y'all might marry this girl. You know what I mean? It's just like, what in the world? Like, no. But it was completely overpowering and irresistible. So that was one of the, bar none, one of the craziest experiences I've ever had in my entire life.